Based on my conversations with Cam Underwood over the last 5 or 6 years, I have heard the stories and reminiscing about the highs and lows of Miami football throughout the years. And on the low end, I have heard about the Virginia debacle in the final game at the Orange Bowl. I have heard about the Clemson game, in which I watched actually both of those games at 58-0. Those are two that come to mind, just two. And I know that there are others through scandal and investigation and NCAA violations as well. Mark this one down. Last Saturday against a 1-5 Georgia Tech team that lost to the Citadel and could only win one other game against South Florida 14-10 as another big downer in Miami football history. Of course, this is Miami Hurricanes live. We come your way every Wednesday night at 8 o'clock Eastern time, and we only do it the right way when we bring on Cam Underwood from State of the U. Cam, besides the football, how are you doing?
I mean, besides the football, I'm fine. The football is the issue really right now, but so it is what it is. And getting ready to go out to California tomorrow for a buddy of mine's wedding. So I will be up bright early Saturday morning at 9 o'clock Pacific time to tune in to Miami, Pittsburgh at noon, real people time over here on the East Coast. So, got an Airbnb with a bunch of my buddies from college. I fancy myself an amateur chef, so I don't know if I'll be on making breakfast duty or anything like that, but probably. So, that's what I'm looking forward to. And I have all kinds of stuff all over this house because I have not put one single thing in this bag for this very, very early flight tomorrow. So, otherwise, good. Football-wise, pretty terrible.
That's funny because at 4 a.m., I will be hitting the road as well, heading to the airport to head west, not as far as you, but to the great city of Houston. So that's my weekend, which I will enjoy very much. Nice. But in the meantime, we're talking Miami football. And yes, wow. So, no, I was not watching this game live. But yes, I did go back and I watched every play. And I had my synopsis of the game, which I see it from a certain perspective that doesn't have the great insight of the individual players and the scheme and the approach and what's supposed to happen as Cam does. But certainly check out my video on my synopsis after watching every play of Georgia Tech's 28-21 win, in which there were no points scored in the second half until overtime. So before we get to the football on Saturday, I think it's worth noting, of course, we both do, that we heard the news just a couple of days ago that Mark Richt, at the age of 59, suffered a heart attack. I believe he's doing fine, but that is never good news to hear from somebody who's as well respected as he is across the sports landscape.
Yeah, I mean, and just in general, obviously, health issues, you don't want to see those befall pretty much anybody. But yeah, Mark Richt did have a heart attack. He tweeted that out on Monday. Basically he hopped on Twitter, was like, word travels fast. So you might have probably heard this already, but, everything interesting, because he's a very pious religious person. So he's talking about, I was fine going to be with the Lord. I just, as I was going through that scenario, started thinking that I was going to miss my wife, which was interesting, and everything. And then he said he anticipated or expected to be to work on Saturday for, the ACC network. Which, hey, if he's able to, great. If not, then take the time that you need, because family comes first and, your personal health and safety comes first. He did release, Mark Richt, that is, a Instagram video today, saying that he was released from the hospital and he's doing fine and everything. So, we just continue to wish him, a swift and complete recovery, moving forward.
So off the top, Cam, I tried to off the top of my head. I did not prepare that open, but those are the two games that came to mind most recently in looking at roughly, I believe, 2015 against Clemson, just prior to the Mark Richt first season in 2016, which obviously led to the ouster of Al Golden. And then that Virginia closed out the Orange Bowl at like 30-0, something like that. I remember it was a shutout.
48.
38-0.
48.
That range. And then my mind wandered back to the late 90s in the
48.
8-0.
48.
Yeah, it was. Okay.
Yeah, it was a lot. And I sat there in the upper deck in the West End zone, and I told my friends I wanted to leave at halftime. And they said, if you want to, you can walk home or catch a cab or something. But we're going to stay. It's the last game of the Orange Bowl. And we sat there and watched Virginia just run up and down the field at will, literally. Yeah, it was bad.
1 week ago, we sat here not feeling great about this team, but understanding that they just played their most significant game of the season, considering I know Florida's Florida and the rivalry and the national scope and the national spotlight of an exclusive game in week 0. But in regards to the practicality of the standings, they just played the team that's expected to be the chief competitor for the division. They won that game head to head to get within a game. Virginia not being a great team, you could forecast a loss for them, and then Miami runs the table and catches them to win the division. It all just seemed to be, okay, not everything's fixed, but everything has hope. There is hope once again. And then thud against Georgia Tech, the apparent worst team in the conference.
Until they played us.
How do you where does this rank among low points?
I mean, this is low. This is very low. I mean, the season's over. Let's just be quite frank about things. To get to 6-6 would be that would be yeoman's work at this point, to be perfectly honest. And I mean, you can't even look at games that you would have penciled in as wins or etched in stone like I had with Georgia Tech. I mean, there's no way that they're going to beat Miami. I mean, not this year, not when they're rebuilding. And then we find a way to lose that game. So if you're looking at Louisville is, they're playing pinball on the scoreboard. Now, they can't really stop anybody, but they put up points and yards. And your boy Tutu Atwell, who, I agree with the decision that Miami said he's too small. He's not too slow to play here, though. And that man is fast. And he's eating up space from punt return and slot and, jet sweeps and things that, gives you pause now. So you think, okay, games that, oh, yeah, whatever, this is going to be a win for sure. I don't see any for sure wins on this schedule anymore. And I think that, that includes FIU, and that will probably, they're going to try to grind that game, try to find a way, just like, Virginia Tech, like Georgia Tech, even Virginia, we won that game, but that wasn't clearly decisive. You know what I mean? Yeah, man, it's just, I've already been wrong on my season prediction for a few weeks now, because I said 10-2 and we lost our third game 3 weeks ago. So I know that I was wrong on that, but even spinning that from just a prognostication into, actual reality, losing to this Georgia Tech team this year that way is atrocious. There's no two ways about it. You come out on the first drive. I saw what they were trying to do. I said, look, just, backed up against your own goal line, run the ball and punt it. Don't run a screen, run the ball. They tried to run a screen. Everybody's like, oh, Navon Donaldson missed a block. No, that didn't come from his gap, the blitz or the line pressure. But to give up a touchdown on that, and, I tried something different last week. I tried, Miami's going to win. So I'm going to start writing the good, the bad, and the ugly during the game live, so I can be done right at the gun, boom, done everything. That happened on the first drive, and I sat back, and I said, oh, no. And, it's one of those things where every team's foundation building win is coming against Miami. I think it was David Hale from ESPN tweeted out a stat. There are 4 teams in the history of college football that have lost 5 games in a season in which they were tied or leading in the fourth quarter. Miami has accomplished that feat 4 times so far this year. Florida State has accomplished that same feat 3 times already this year, leading or being tied in the fourth quarter and finding a way to lose. While people are saying, oh, that one of those was the year that Notre Dame went 4-8. P.S. by the way, they beat us in that year, 2016. And then they went to the college football playoff in 2017 after we blew them out in that November game, or the high point of the program in the last whatever time, when Miami finally ascended to being number 2 in the country. I don't see it like that. I don't see this as that. I think that there are lots of teams that find ways to lose games that they should win, and that is who they are, I do not see this as a harbinger for future success. That people are trying to say, oh, well, we're close, and it's not horseshoes or hand grenades. I don't care. This is a results-driven industry. Sports, you play to win a game. I don't want to hear about being close. I don't want to hear that. This roster is too loaded. This schedule is too soft to be finding ways to lose games. And when we find ways to lose games, I don't care if we lose them by one possession or whatever. When you find ways to lose games, that's not positive. And I'm not crazy. And I feel like the last sane person on earth, with everybody saying something different, and then like, oh, does that by definition make me crazy because I feel that I'm the last sane person on earth? We're losing games that we should be winning. We're finding ways to lose. Georgia Tech scored on offense one time. You go punt safe and let the guy run by the guy, and everybody is saying, watch the fake, watch the fake, watch the fake. Georgia Tech heard us call, watch the fake. They said, what are we going to do? Run the fake anyway, because they can't stop it. How is that positive? You missed 29 tackles, and I swear to you, it was more than that. I swear, because there were guys who were out of position, and I'm going to count those as missed tackles too. And honestly, I think that the number that Pro Football Focus came up with at 29 was low on what actually occurred on the field. I believe that we missed more tackles than that. And then you play a walk-on linebacker, 31 snaps, in high leverage situations in a game that matters with your season on the line, instead of anybody. Patrick Joyner, Sam Brooks. Well, Sam Brooks is the backup at Mike linebacker. Shaq Quarterman's been here for 4 years. He knows every single play call. Move him over to Will, put Sam Brooks at Mike. But no. You go to a walk-on for 31 snaps. And they say, oh, he graded out well. He did okay. Da-da-da-da. Absolutely not. He's another guy. He got eaten up by so many blocks. He didn't know how to get off of a block. So you want to count? I mean, okay, he missed only 2 tackles. We're going to talk about the other 8 tackles that he wasn't even positioned for because he was out of position, or he decided to try to run the long way around a block like he's running around one of those hula hoop on the grounds for, in a practice drill or something. What are we talking about? This is not positive. There's nothing positive here. What are we like? This is not positive. This is a very, very low point. Uncle Lou, Miami's the worst team in the ACC. I would love to disagree with you, but I can't because we lost to Georgia Tech at home.
And that's what it is. 28-21. Nobody scored in the second half. I saw a couple times in which
I didn't even get to the kicking.
The kicking. Go at it. The kicking.
No, I'm just
missing field goals. You know what I was going to go for, Cam? I was going to go for the other kicking. The punting was fine. You pinned them twice inside the 5.
The punting's fantastic. Lewis Headley.
And you didn't keep them there. So the one time they got it out to like the 40-45 to flip field position. The other time they went on a scoring drive.
Right.
After you pinned them inside the 5. 2 consecutive drives. I think 2 consecutive within close proximity of each other. Right. Yeah. And the defense let you down there.
I mean, it wasn't where it needed to be for sure. But yeah, Lewis Headley, honestly, at this point of the year is the team MVP. And I did not say that tongue in cheek. I did not say that facetiously at all. He's been the best player on his team. And he had, all 3 of his punts were inside the 20. Those 2 were inside the 5. He had a 67-yarder that was a kick and roll that was outstanding. He's been great. Miami missed 3 field goals. Turner Davidson, he comes in for a 34-yarder after, being great, in the last couple of games and everything. And he hit one that looked like me out there trying to kick a field goal. That was not good. So then you're like, okay, well, that good story went to by the wayside, even though he did make his extra points. So the next time you bring out Bubba Baxa for a short field goal, give him another shot from the right hash where he can't make angled kicks. So what does he not do? Make an angled kick. Wide right. He kicked it dead straight, but the hash mark is outside the goalpost. So then on the last drive, you decide to play for a field goal with Turner Davidson, and he kicks it about 2 feet off the ground and gets a block. Why are you playing for field goals? And in the last 2 drives in the fourth quarter, the first play, The first play was on the penultimate drive was a 42-yard run by Cam Harris off the left side. On the final drive, it was a 50-yard play action from Nkosi to D. Wiggins over the top. So 92 yards on 2 plays to start 2 consecutive drives with 0 points. What are we doing? What are you doing?
So I do my best to honor any kind of contribution to the channel, and Uncle Lou has mentioned that maybe we should drop the Miami show each and every week in favor of either Vandy or Kansas, asking if I have considered that.
Hey, man, go ahead. I wanted to go to Vanderbilt. That was my #1 dream school. I've already told you. So, hey, I mean, if that's what you want, I can take my hour and I can trust. Like I said, I could have already been packing for my trip cross country this week. I can, find other things to do. So, I mean, if that's what you choose to do, it's been a pleasure. But if not, then we'll still be here.
I will make this decision. I will add a Kansas or Vandy show if I do one and I get 300 on the line at one time. Bang. If I get 300 on the line at one time, I'm not saying I'm going to cancel this one, but I will add any show for any team if I can consistently get 300 on the line at one time. We'll do that.
Seems fair.
But yes, we talk Florida State, Miami, and Ohio State. Those are our 3 shows each and every Wednesday night, and we'll stick with that plan for a while now. We have Newport Kane on the line asking about the availability of DJ Dallas for this week.
DJ Dallas is going to travel to Pittsburgh. I am not sure that he's going to play. If he plays, I think it's going to be limited. I think we're going to go with Cam Harris as starting running back, and maybe mix in a little bit of DJ Dallas depending on his health and availability. Maybe mix in some Robert Burns as well. Lorenzo Lingard, he can travel. He can still play snaps. He hasn't played in games where, one game would affect his redshirt status. So, that's what I think about that. Jeff Thomas is still suspended this week. He'll be back next week for Florida State. And Zach McLeod is going to start at weak side linebacker because we need a scholarship player to play starting linebacker. So this is Zach McLeod's 4th game. So he will have no more games to play and maintain his red shirt to return next year. So just keep that in mind. Michael Pinckney, I believe, is going to be out for this game. And that's why Zach McLeod is going to start. So rubber is going to meet road next week against Florida State, where and that's the preview because next week is Florida State in November. But yeah, so, we'll really see where Pinckney is. And then that's really going to be decision time. And I know that, Zach McLeod did not play in a couple early games, or a couple recent games, I should say, to maintain his redshirt status. But depending on how 56 is feeling next week, maybe Zach McLeod, he might have to make a personal decision and leave the program or something for the rest of the season because we can't be running out walk-on linebackers. I'm sorry. And I'm not sorry to say that. At the University of Miami, walk-ons should not be playing meaningful snaps at any time ever. So you got to do what you got to do. And we'll see. So that's the injury update. No quarterback has been named as the starter. Manny Diaz said he's going to make that decision tomorrow. I find it curious, however, that at the Monday press conferences, Dan Enos came out immediately and said that Nkosi Perry separated his left shoulder on that hit in the Georgia Tech game when he went out for a couple plays. But it's been 6 weeks, and all we've heard about Jaron Williams is an upper extremity injury. But we're delineating clearly and decisively what Nkosi Perry's injury is. And again, and people are like, oh, well, if you watched the game, you saw that. I'm the one who was telling you that his arm was dangling and he's not right, Jaron Williams, with his shoulder. I'm not sitting here and saying everything is fine and there's nothing going on. I'm saying from an optics standpoint, for one player, you hide behind university policy, and university policy or athletic department football program policy for years has been upper extremity, lower extremity, or head. Those are the only 3 areas that they will say a player has an injury, regardless of what it is. So you do that same engagement that you've done for many a year for Jaron Williams. But then for N'Kosi Perry, you go out immediately in public in front of all the media on live stream talking about, oh, this is what the injury is. That is curious to me.
Folks, if you love fantasy football and you believe you can predict the statistics in the Miami Pitt game better than me, then you go to MiamiMoneyball.com. You go there, and there are 12 stats categories in which you select the stats for both teams and how they will match up. Pitt, Miami, the game at Heinz Field coming up on Saturday, and there are tons of prizes there. Just go check it out that you can win money and other prizes. MiamiMoneyball.com. And also, I want to point you toward my Week 9 college football predictions in the link in the description section below. 14-7 against the spread. Do this math one time. 100 times 7 would be $700 in losses. 14 times 91, which is how much you would win per $100 bet on those wins. 14 times 91 versus the 700 you lose. I think you're about $600 ahead. 14-7 against the spread last week. 58% for the season against the spread. All right, back to the topic at hand. And I thought Cam Harris played a good game. I thought it's ironic that you mentioned the screenplay out of the gate in regards to the one that they did not execute, or maybe your argument was that it shouldn't have been called at that point. But actually, the screenplays, they opened up for them a number of times, and they ran some very successful screens to Cam Harris.
Yeah. I mean, Miami is a team that does run screens and run them well. I didn't think that it should have been called at that time on the first drive, and it did not get executed well. So both of those things were true. But no, Cam Harris did yeoman's work. He had a career day, 18 carries for 136. That's a career high in attempts and rushing yards. He had also 3 catches for 31 and a touchdown on screen passes, basically. And one of those screens, it wasn't a far distance, but that was a throw from N'Kosi Perry. You had 3 defenders coming from the front side, hands up in different angles, and he got that ball right in there. That was a throw. That was a throw. If you think about the throws he's made down the field where he's fitted into tight windows, that screen pass, and that was the touchdown, I want to say, was as good of a throw as any throw down the field that he's made. Screens are a thing that can be in the offense. I just didn't think it was right at the time, and we didn't run it well on that first drive. But and I said to people, Cam Harris can catch the ball out of the backfield just from watching him in high school in 7-on-7. Some other people who follow recruiting were like, no, he can't. And I said, I just disagree with you. And I'm not going to say that he's DJ Dallas, because, DJ Dallas literally played wide receiver when he first got here. And in high school, he played wide receiver, tight end, running back, quarterback, safety, corner, linebacker, all those kind of things. So his skills as a receiver are different than Cam Harris's. But Cam Harris is, one of the strongest guys on the team, pound for pound. He's just yoked up, rock solid. He will run you over. He's faster than you want to necessarily think that he is. But no, he's a good player, very talented guy. He was a 4-star recruit just last year. So, if you're talking about the top end talent of the roster, you have to talk about Cam Harris, and he's doing really well as he's stepping up into a bigger role.
I am typically not one to overreact. That's what we typically do as fans. I may be on the other end of the spectrum where I sit back and wait a little bit too long at times. So if you go to the emergency nth degree disaster crash and burn dumpster fire program, then you fire Diaz and you say we're horrible, we're atrocious, how can we go 3-4 against this schedule, and also a Central Michigan game that we only won by 5 and scored 17 points, and on with all the negatives. You can go on the other end of the spectrum, as has been noted, and just isolate field goal kicking. If we had a capable kicker, now the one error that many people make in this situation is they'll say, our field goal kicker's 10 for 23, let's say. They'll say, what if we had a field goal kicker who was 23 for 23? Well, you can't do that. You need to say, okay, what if we had a reasonable field goal kicker who was 17 or 18 for 23, let's say? The point I'm making is the record is the record. I think Bill Parcells most famously said, you are what you are because that's the record.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. I completely agree with that. But we are in the field of evaluation, and not every 3 and 4 team is created equal. And there are actually 3 and 4 teams that are better than 4 and 3 teams and 5 and 2 teams and all over the map. What I'm saying is it as simple? Not that this would be a great team that would be challenging Clemson or whatever, but how much better would the record look if they just had adequate field goal kicking?
I mean, 5-2, 6-1, legitimately.
And I think they look bad. They're underachieving. I just posted a video where I criticized them to holy hell, but at the same time, yes, just take that one position, and if it was just capable. Again, I'm not talking about all-time great, never miss a kick. Capable, hitting 80% of your field goals.
Right, and I mean that
and extra points.
Well, I mean that too. Hello. But yeah, Miami's missed a couple extra points this year. You've gone, 6 for 13 kicking field goals this year. There are so many things that have gone awry for this this team this far in the year. I've gotten on here and I've bashed Robert Knowles in the past. Robert Knowles is playing pretty well. Who's playing worse than Knowles did, or worse than Knowles used to, based upon usage? DJ Ivey. It's been pretty terrible. I think he'd given up like 11 out of 14 targets for completions before last week's game. He decides to be asleep on the job for the fake field goal touchdown. The other touchdown, he's looking in the only offensive touchdown that they scored with like their offense on the field. He's looking in the backfield, letting a guy run by him, and they score again. Like as loud as the decry was for having Robert Knowles on the field, DJ Ivey has been worse this year than Knowles was in the last two. So yeah, it was. That's pretty bad. You're missing tackles left and right, regardless of who's in there. It gets cleaned up for a little bit, when Pinckney and Quarterman finally buckle in there. But Pinckney goes out injured, then you bring in a walk on. That's not going to help. You got guys up front missing tackles too. Every team has bad calls go against them. I see more of them with Miami, but then again, I watch every single play that Miami plays. I don't watch every single play of any other team, so I don't know about all that. As a comparison. But what I will say is I've seen plenty of bad calls go against Miami's way. You get guys open and you drop passes. The offensive line's not working. The offensive line, actually, I think they played their best game against Georgia Tech. They gave time. There was running room. Like it wasn't perfect, but I can start to see them turning a corner. But to echo the sentiments of my SB Nation colleague Bud Elliott over at Banner Society, when Florida State was abjectly terrible on the offensive line last year, people are saying, or in his fan base, that the goal should be, to be above league average. And he said, no, we're atrocious. The goal for improvement should be to go from atrocious to bad. And that's actually a step forward. And I think that's honestly where the offensive line is getting towards being bad. Bad towards average would be another step forward. But there's so many things, and on the counter side, people, and obviously, like Manny Diaz, he's going to take the utopian kind of view of things. He's going to take the glass half full of we're 4 plays away from being undefeated or yada, yada, yada. But we're not. And that also ignores the failings that have been going on. People are not making plays. And I've been saying for years that we need somebody to make a positive program-changing play. And then you think that you get those. TJ Dallas's touchdown run against Virginia Tech. You win that game. You come in. You're 5-2 at that point. Because you beat them. You beat Georgia Tech because you continue things going. You think that touchdown run in the fourth quarter when he shrugged off tackles from everybody, he's weaving, he's going, he's using his speed, he gets to the end zone. That was a singularly great play, and you think this could be the moment, but it wasn't. And it's just not, the performance is not where it needs to be. That's what I'll say.
There's a number of folks in the chat room who are encouraging everyone else to hit the like button, so please do. That is the simplest and easiest way if you do nothing else, to help support the channel and this particular show, because as has been stated a number of times, it helps move it into the suggested videos category, if nothing else. And there are other ways to contribute to the channel and what we do here each and every Wednesday night, such as the super chat. The super chat's on. Please contribute to what we do here with Cam Underwood, who donates this hour to us, in addition to running a full-fledged SB Nation website, also a full-time job, everything else he's got going in his personal life. He devotes an hour here each and every week and provides insight and perspective that you're not going to find anywhere else. I want to clear something up. It's been stated a number of times. So there was a little joke running. Uncle Lou said something in the live chat about dropping the Miami show, and we had a little fun. We joked around about it. So there are basic 3 components that go into me deciding what teams I cover. It's pretty simple. The teams that are the best on the field. So look at your top 25, look at your top 5 to 10 in the nation. It pretty much runs in line to a certain extent with the teams that I cover. So that has something to do with it. Obviously, the teams that win are generally more relevant. It also has to do with who watches the videos. So if Kansas goes on a run and wins the national championship next year and nobody cares, and I do videos with 13 views, I will still have to talk about them to some extent. But if nobody watches, then it doesn't matter. So the people have to watch the videos and be interested in the team. I have recently, Cam may enjoy this, have been focusing more on Michigan football, despite their issues in recent weeks. And I'm getting more views on Michigan football than anything. In addition to that, it also has to do with the quality of the guests that I have come on. Sometimes people be like, why don't you talk about this team? Well, I will to a certain extent, but I have not been able to find a quality contributor to come on and talk about that particular program. So those are the 3 components that go into my decisions about which teams to cover. We talk Miami football, and we will continue to do that every Wednesday night at 8 o'clock Eastern time with Cam Underwood from State of the U. And again, you get some really good content here, but if you really want to do the deep dive, Miami, the ACC, and what the prospects are for Manny Diaz going forward and his program, then check out stateoftheu.com. Is it ridiculous in any way to talk about Manny Diaz and his job security? Yeah. I, for one, think it is.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
I know that, one of our contributors did write, if asked the question if he's on the hot seat earlier this year, and it is not necessarily improving with the play on the field, but no, it's not. It's not. I just don't think that's going to happen. I don't think, Blake James, unfortunately, the athletic director did come out this week, 7 games into his initial season as head coach, not just at Miami, but anywhere, that he supports Manny Diaz. The players have had to, been asked about it, had to come out and say it and things like that. Yeah. So there are those things, but I don't think that it is at all appropriate at this time to talk about his job security right now. Oh, and before I go on, I saw somebody ask about Gabe Taylor, Sean Taylor's younger brother, who's a senior at Gulliver Prep right now, if Miami is recruiting him. Not currently, which is why it's kind of getting this social media groundswell, because he has 5 interception returns for touchdowns. But look at Gulliver Prep's schedule. Like, they haven't necessarily played great teams. But, he's playing well. And there's something to be said for that. If he really wants to be a collegiate football player, then maybe down the line, if there's a last scholarship spot, we can maybe evaluate, maybe through the course of the season. And I haven't really watched him or evaluated or anything, so I can't really sit here and say definitively yes or no or blah, blah, blah. But I just saw that somebody asked about that. So why aren't we on him? You could ask that about any number of teams. And I get that we asked that because, we're Miami and his brother was a legend here, and things like that. But yeah, that's the answer I have.
Got a question for you, Cam. So I'm going to go A to B to C, and then you give me the result of what makes sense and what doesn't here. So we've talked about the recruiting rankings and talent currently on the roster
Mhm.
has been rated anywhere from about, I think, 8th in the country was Mark Richt's first or second class,
Mhm.
to
Yeah.
I think 28th was the worst rated class that would currently be on the roster, in that range. So maybe an aggregate of about 15th in the country, something in that range, low teens, 15 somewhere. So the easy translation would be that they should be about the 15th to 20th best team in the country.
Mhm.
Then you factor in the schedule, which is pretty light. So
Mhm.
maybe they should outperform that 15th to 20th best team in the nation,
Mhm.
maybe to 8 to 12 in the nation. And again,
Mhm.
the season's not over yet, and we'll see how it plays out. So is all this on? So we're looking at a performance thus far, and let me know how you feel about this. So we've got 130 FBS teams. We've got about 65 to 70 in the Power 5. Just the way, not looking at talent, just results on the field, results and performance on the field, I would rate them to be the 60th best team in the country,
If not lower.
if not lower.
Mhm.
Has the coaching been that poor? Because that's what it points to.
Yeah, I believe so.
Okay.
And this is, it's funny, when we write an article or have an opinion, or I tweet something from the State of the U Twitter account, people want to jump on that as though it's a single source, or as though that's the only point of conversation, I should say. The blame for this, I mean, it's a big enough burger where everybody can get a bite. The coaches, the players, just the game situations. I mean, there's not really anybody who's doing the job to the standard. Is there some player development that's been seen? Sure. Again, Robert Knowles. Look at the offensive line. Again, they're not great. But again, even being bad is an improvement from the terrible that we saw at the beginning of the year. You get John Campbell, who works in at left guard with Navon Donaldson because Campbell is playing better. And also Navon Donaldson has not been playing great. So you open up the opportunity for someone else to develop. There are some things to like. We do still have talent. We still have, Cam Harris had a career rushing day. DJ Dallas has been a good running back this year. When he's on the field, Jeff Thomas, KJ Osborne, Brevin Jordan, Gregory Rousseau is a revelation. There are things to like. Yet and still, nobody's doing their job and doing the job to the standard, because if they were, then we would be winning games. But also, I think it's coming to the point where you have a lot of individuals making mistakes at different times. And I will put it to you like this. When I was a music teacher, there was a video, and I keep looking for it, and I want to find it, of what a 90 sounds like in music. Because if you have a choir or a band and you have 100-something people making music together, and let's just round numbers, say that everybody has 1,000 notes in a song that they need to perform accurately. And that's the volume, that's the pitch, that's the tempo, that's the duration for how long that note lasts. So you have, and whatever, there's other concerns as well, but I won't even get into that. But let's just say you have 1,000 notes and you miss 100 of them. That's a 90%. Now, if everybody in the room singing or playing misses a different 100, that 90%, which is an A in math, will sound like dog shit. And so the pursuit, I've always said, is perfection and nothing less, because you have to go for that 99.99999 performance rating on accuracy for it to be appropriate. That's the thing that I think is going on this field. Is everybody making a mistake on the same play? No. But are there different people making mistakes every single play? Yes. And those mistakes are what are being taken advantage of, whether it's offense, defense, or special teams. So while you might look at one player and say, hey, out of your 1,000 assignments today, you only missed 100. That's a 90% grade. That's fantastic. But if you patch them across the entire team and all the assignments from alignment, assignment, technique, employment, or engagement on the field, and everybody, DJ Ivy on that fake punt, Everybody did what they needed to do on that fake punt, except for who? DJ Ivy. Why? Because you saw the guy run by him. So for that, you have 10 out of 11 doing their execution. That's what? 91% of the defense on it. But that one person ruins it for everybody. And I think that that's really what's going on. It's not necessarily we're coming out there and nobody on defense has any clue and everybody loses their one-on-one matchup. They don't do it. It is key errors at key times by key people who are being targeted by the opposing team. And that's what is keeping this team from greatness. And it just needs to, not even from greatness, from being 500. If we want to be perfectly honest, look, 6-6, 5-7 is a major, 7-5 is a major win from where we are right now.
I rarely bring up my day job, but along the same lines, in the television industry, at the level at which we work at my place of employment, they go by the 5 nines rule, meaning accuracy at 99.999% of the time.
Mm-hmm.
And we actually go through all sorts of algorithms to chronicle that in regards to the number of breaks, the number of punches by operators. So if you actually watched television and it was accurately executed 99% of the time, you would think it was atrocious because you'd be watching, you'd see a camera move like every few minutes, or you'd see the station go to bars or go to black for 4 seconds or 14 seconds. It would look atrocious. And you'd be like, well, they're running at 99% accuracy. That the standard needs to be a lot higher than that.
That's what I'm saying, and I just use round numbers as going from 90, but even at 99%, dude, and again, like I'm a trained musician, whatever. Think of your favorite song and think of 1% of that music being performed incorrectly. Whatever it is, it could be Whitney Houston, it could be Backstreet Boys, it could be like whatever, Led Zeppelin. That would make such a big difference. And for Miami, on the field, we need to, from what we're seeing, that 99% would be such a vast improvement from what we're seeing. But I think to the original question way back when, before I went on that diatribe, the blame for the shortcoming and the shortfalls, it goes everywhere. It goes to the coaches, it goes to the administration, it goes to the players, it goes to the training staff, it goes to the nutrition, it goes to the weight room. The way that Miami is performing on the field is not insular. It is not singular. It is not one person making one mistake, getting one penalty, missing one tackle. It is widespread. And I know that Manny Diaz wants to talk about the level of competition in that, the team continues to compete and not give up and work hard and things of that nature. And while that's good, the performance isn't there. So, that's a good footnote, I guess. That's a good anecdotal story. But you're 3-4 and just lost to a team that lost to the Citadel at home and had not had an ACC win. And now beating you is going to be the foundation for them moving forward. No es bueno.
Matthew Gonzalez and everybody else who is encouraging people to hit the like button, thank you so much. MiamiMoneyball.com. Jump on there if you love fantasy football and give it a shot. Darrell with a contribution on the super chat. Thank you so much. And if I don't get those posted to the screen, it's because if it's past a certain point in the live chat, I can't grab it and post it on the screen. So I apologize for that. We had posted earlier J Love's comment, and I don't know that you need to dive too much into this. This is certainly, of course, up to you, Cam. It was kind of an extension of my question talking about the talent on the roster and then the results and trying to put that together, and the obvious gap being the coaching. J Love was taking that back a decade and saying, has this been the issue going back several coaches?
I think that each coach has kind of had their own issues, but in general, the overarching theme is Miami has found a way to do less with more talent than anybody in America. And that just, I don't think that there's any debate. I don't think that there's any team that really even comes close, relative to the talent on the roster. That continues to come through Coral Gables, that continues to play here and in the NFL. The caliber athletes, the size of the guys, the speed of the guys. that players or that teams all over the country were recruiting. It would be one thing if, you're just talking about guys, who were only recruited by Miami, and nobody else wanted. But when you get guys like, and I know that he wasn't necessarily a bad player, but even he had his bad days. Amon Richards, before his career-ending injury, recruited by Alabama. Like, it was Miami and Alabama as a finalist. You know what I mean? Chad Thomas. Shaq Quarterman was recruited by SEC schools. Michael Pinckney. There is a lot of talent, and my major thing has always been that I don't think that we're running the right schemes to take advantage of that talent. I think on defense we're running the right scheme now. We're just very young. And again, that issue with people making mistakes and that one mistake hurting the integrity of the defense has really kind of taken hold. But on offense, I've been saying for years, my boy Roman Kane, a good personal friend of mine, even though, he decided or he writes for a different website than State of the U, that Miami needs to go spread because everybody down here goes spread. And we're not going to be Alabama sized on offense or defense. Our offensive line is not going to be their size. Our front seven is not going to be, linebackers at 6'4", 250 like Alabama has. We're not going to have that. So on defense, we're taking advantage of our speed. We're running a scheme that I think fits the talent here. On offense, we're still not doing that. And I've been saying that Miami should go spread for years. And look, for me, I was saying that way back, because that's my personal favorite style of offense in any sport: soccer, football, basketball, hockey. Pace, space, let's go. Look, when I played basketball back in the day, before I put on all this weight and I could actually still run and jump and do all those kind of things, let's get the ball and let's push it. I don't need to walk it up the court. I don't need to set up a call. No, let's go, because they can't run with us. Whoever it is, they really can't. And if you get guys from here to stay here, even the guys that we even have on this team, and if you think outside of the box a little bit and you get a guy like Tutu Atwell, who would have come to Miami if we would have recruited him, to be perfectly honest. If we would have just said, you know what, we need another fast guy. I don't care if you're 5'6". You can be our new Roscoe Parrish. Just come down here. We'll put you in space, give you the ball, let you cook. You tell me that he wouldn't have done that to put on, and I watched this man play at Traz Powell down at FIU North, which is a hop, skip, and a jump, a stone's throw from Hard Rock Stadium. And he wouldn't be cooking like he's cooking for Louisville if we went spread. And I think that for me is the big thing. We're getting talent, but choosing an improper utilization for that talent, and that has held back the performance.
Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, on our big Wednesday night. This is our sandwich show, Miami football at 8 o'clock Eastern time with Cam Underwood from State of the U. I've mentioned this a number of times, so I think that anybody that's watched me in particular and this show specifically on a regular basis knows that I go out of my way to try to recognize, because I truly appreciate, and we appreciate, your contribution, whatever that is, and certainly when it's in the super chat. So I go out of my way to try to recognize and show appreciation for that. So again, I will explain. What you see on the screen is not what is on YouTube. So therefore, it doesn't light up for me like it does you. So Florida Gators 84, you made a contribution. I've got YouTube pulled up right now, and I can see it all lit up in blue. I cannot see that in the application, so I've got to just find a little $sign that says 2. So I try to get as many good comments to the screen as possible, certainly, but certainly acknowledge those super chat contributions. So I am not bypassing super chat contributions. I would be a moron to do that. Not just not appreciative. I would be not real smart to do that. So as I've explained, once it's gone, and I can't grab it and put it on the screen. If you want me to discontinue putting the comments on the screen, I don't think that would be very wise or very entertaining. It certainly adds a dimension to the show. So I cannot find and locate every meaningful comment or super chat contribution. I do my best to find them and post them to the screen, but they are not as obvious as they are to you on the YouTube stream. So a wise man once said, don't criticize what you don't understand. All right. So where was I headed? You got a game against Pitt coming up, And with Miami being a pretty substantial favorite in most of these games, 14 points against Virginia Tech, 18 points against Georgia Tech, they are like a 6-point underdog to a Pitt team on the road at Heinz Field. I don't know that weather's going to be a factor. It's beautiful right now in Connecticut, so I would expect that not to be the case for this Pitt Miami matchup.
Yeah, I think that that Vegas has come around on the Canes. I think that the SP Plus, my former SB Nation, now ESPN staff writer friend Bill Connolly, his proprietary advanced metric predictive system. All those things are going not necessarily in my. Well, actually, no. SP Plus has Miami still favored or projected to win. We'll call it. But no, Vegas has Miami. It opened at Pittsburgh as a 2-point favorite with a 46 over/under. Now the line has moved to Pittsburgh as a 6-point favorite and a 43.5 over/under total for the game. So yeah, it is. It's just one of those things where you kind of have to trust your eyes, and it's one of those things like, are you gonna trust me or your lying eyes? Well, I mean, my lying eyes are telling me that you guys aren't playing really well, and Pittsburgh is, and they're going to be at home. And 2 years ago in 2017, they're the team that broke Miami. If we're being perfectly honest, that team, Miami, went in at 10-0, lost to Pittsburgh. Kenny Pickett is a freshman in his first start. He's now a junior. And Miami has been a shambles pretty much ever since. So yeah, it might be an interesting day. I mean, it'll be a little cooler up there than it is down here for sure. But I don't think that the weather is going to be, like a factor or anything. Not like what was that NC State Notre Dame monsoon game a couple of years ago. It's not going to be anything like that. I mean, it's going to be football weather, probably in the 50s, maybe upper 40s, because it's Pittsburgh and that's the weather. But more than the weather, Miami has to deal with that team. They got a couple strong running backs. Kenny Pickett is still there. He's a mobile enough quarterback to step out of some sacks and gain some yardage, which again, if you don't remember, in 2017, his very first start, that's what he did to beat us. The Marquise French kid with 2 F's in his name is super fast. Yes, by the way, when I taught at Miramar, I guess that's like a Haitian American descendant name, kind of Creole thing. And there's somebody who was picking up their daughter whose last name was French. And we sat there like typing into the system French like regular. And then like after 20 minutes, she's like, "Oh no, there's 2 F's." And I'm like, "Ma'am, you knew there were 2 F's in your name. Like you could have said," so you know what I mean? Like it's a thing that you would say. So whatever, that's a personal story. I apologize. Anyways, and look, I didn't even get to their defense. Pat Narduzzi was the longtime defensive coordinator at Michigan State. No team in America is averaging as many sacks per game as are the Pittsburgh Panthers, going up against a team that was giving up the most sacks in America. That went from 130th to 128th or 127th, I want to say, last week, after Pittsburgh sacked their opponent so many times that they fell to the bottom of the rankings on sacks allowed. So that poses a problem for Miami's offense. Even if the offensive line is getting better, now you're going against the best team in getting sacks. And that's without Rashad Weaver, who's from Cooper City down here, their number 1 defensive end who's out. That's without Keyshawn Camp, who's also from Florida, who's out for the year as a defensive tackle. So they lose 2 of their top 5 or top 4 probably defensive linemen, and they're still averaging 5.2 almost sacks a game. Yo, what? I mean, they got some strong guys in the secondary there still too. This Pittsburgh team, they're not great. They're intermittently explosive. But I think they do some things that it might be pretty challenging for Miami to contend with. And that being said, I've picked Pittsburgh to win in my ACC SEC Pick'em League this week. So I am fully expecting the Miami Hurricanes to go in and win by 2 touchdowns now. Like it would fit perfectly. Like I'm like, fine, I'm off of that. I picked Miami in pretty much every game except for Florida this year. Whatever. Okay, cool. I finally picked Pittsburgh. Miami's gonna. I watch it happen. I come talk to you next week. Watch it happen.
Yeah, Kenny Pickett, as Cam mentions, we remember it well. 10-0 Miami went into Heinz Field, and Kenny Pickett didn't light up the world, but he played game manager very well, and he was very mobile in that game and didn't make mistakes and pulled it off. 8 touchdowns, 4 picks this year at 59% passing. A.J. Davis leads them in rushing with 3 touchdowns and a 4.9 average. And Maurice Double F French, 56 catches already this season, 3 touchdowns. And Taser Mack has 45 and 2 scores on the day. And this Pitt team, I can't remember who did they just beat. They beat somebody in the ACC last weekend to go to 2-1 in the ACC. Regardless, they've got a loss against Virginia, so they'd lose the tiebreaker there. I think they just beat. I know they beat Duke. They beat somebody else in the ACC last weekend, so they're 5-2 now. They beat UCF. They played within a touchdown of Penn State.
Syracuse.
They're a pretty good football team. They beat Syracuse last week. Thank you. On a Thursday night or a Friday night. Yes. 27-20. I recall it now. Okay, so Pitt's a pretty good football team. 5-2 again. They beat UCF. They stayed within a touchdown of Penn State. They did lose to Virginia, but it was a close game through 3 quarters. So they're in the Coastal Division race right now. Before we let you go, Cam, I don't know if this has any credence to it all. Anytime a big-time program gets into hot water, there's a lot of disappointment. People throw around all sorts of crazy names out there as to be the next head coach. This is one that I see and hear. I've heard it a zillion times over the past 3 or 4 days. Ed Reed.
Yeah, I think that Ed Reed could have a role here if he wanted. He was, he knows the game so well. And you can even hear, when people talked about it when he played, that famous interception that he had against Peyton Manning when he'd set it up 2 seasons before, what cover 2 coverage looked like. And he started going one way and just whipped around, didn't even look, and just started sprinting the other way. And, he baited him into that and set that up over the course of time, like years. So could he be a coach here? Sure. He was an assistant DB's coach with the Bills. He's worked around football in the last couple of years and things like that. So sure, could he be the DB's coach or something like that? Yeah. Could he be a motivational speaker? I'm hurt, dog. You heard that when he was in college. So, he has that presence for sure. I'm not going to go with another first-time head coach. That's just me. If he really wanted that path, I think that he has the knowledge and the connections to make that happen, having already coached, at least once, having had one of the sharpest, or continuing to have, one of the sharpest football minds that most people have ever encountered. I think that is possible. But right now, and this backs up to your first or earlier question of, is Manny Diaz's job in jeopardy? No. But they usually, people, when they're talking about that, are linking those things. So not only is Manny Diaz's job in jeopardy now, it's in jeopardy for Ed Reed to come in currently. I don't think that either of those things are true. But again, could Ed Reed have a role as a coach? Could he eventually grow into being a head coach if he desired? Absolutely. But right now, and at the University of Miami, with all due respect to Ed Reed, who's a great player and wonderful player, who was the foundational player for the best or on the best college roster of all time, no.
There is a production either by NFL Network or NFL Films in which Bill Belichick and Tom Brady, they're in the inner sanctum there talking strategy. They're taking on the Baltimore Ravens that week, and Bill Belichick cannot say enough about how smart Ed Reed is a football player, that he's like the smartest defensive player he's ever run across.
Yeah.
Not just talented, great, tough, all those things,
right,
but from a mental standpoint, just did things that they would just rack their brains to try to counter, to try to figure out.
And it was the way that Ed Reed went about it was different than Troy Polamalu, because Polamalu, and he was given free reign and in Pittsburgh. They said, this is the defense we're calling, except for 43. Go do what you want. If you see it, if you think, hey, I'm going to come down and blitz, or I'm supposed to blitz, but I'm going to play coverage, or whatever, 43, whatever you see. But he was more physical. He was more going into the box. He was more coming downhill, hitting guys, supporting the run, things like that. Even though he was, Troy Polamalu, when he was at his peak, was all over the field as well. But Ed Reed in the secondary, just in the passing game, was I mean, yeah, it was different. He was more cerebral and floating around in space versus Troy Polamalu, who just wanted to go hit somebody. And they both were wildly successful and incredibly impactful. But it was just it was McDonald's versus Burger King. They just went about the delivery or the methodology in different ways.
863 Kane. Yes, I must have missed your contribution as well. Again, as soon as I found this comment, what did I do? I went backwards, but boom, I go about 10 spots. That's all I can do. I cannot bring anything beyond that back to the screen. What I'm going to do, everyone, I vow that I'm going to shoot a video and I'm going to thank everyone personally who has contributed to the super chat over the last umpteen, as far as I can go back in the record keeping. And I will thank you in that fashion. Let's do that. All right. Very good. It's Miami Football Talk each and every Wednesday night. And I'm not going to post that video for like the next week, because if you saw my schedule for the next week, it's pretty insane. All right, Cam, appreciate you stopping by as always. It's Pitt, it's Miami. Hopefully we'll have better things to talk about this time next week with Miami getting back on the rails and headed toward postseason play. Cam, appreciate you stopping by. Have a great trip out to California.
Thank you. So, yeah, we'll do that. Obviously, stateoftheu.com on all of our social. That's Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at the State of the U. And then next week we get to talk about those jokers up in Tallahassee because it's Florida State week. So we'll do what we can. We'll see you guys next week. Have a great one.
And Mineral Tim 79, what you're talking about has nothing to do with what I'm doing in terms of posting comments to the screen. So I know everybody's trying to fix my issue here, but it has nothing to do with what's going on.
Everybody's tech support all of a sudden. Got it.
Thank you so much, everyone. We'll see you next time.
See you guys.